Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for the webinar, and hopefully you've been on some of the others on the series this week. Hopefully we'll see you on the last one coming up in about 2 hours. Thanks for joining for this one, getting the visibility you need into DevOps. I just want to let everyone know a few things up top. We are recording this, so if you have any colleagues that were looking to join but aren't able to, we will be able to get the recording to you later. We'll share that along with the slides. You can ask questions, and we would love to see questions, so please do. Even if you're trying to wait to the end, but if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it right away. If you think that maybe we won't be able to get to it, please ask it anyway, because we can take it offline. So I just want to let everyone know a few more things at the start. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay, so if you can just go ahead and type in your name and where you're watching from, that'd be really great to see. And then in the chat, I'm going to post a couple things. This first one is that for anyone interested, Jenkins World Registration went live today. This whole series about Jenkins, I've seen plenty of you on a lot of these segments, and that's the event that you need to go to if you're looking to really increase your knowledge. So we have a special discount code right now, Black Friday, for $100 off our super early bird pricing registration. That's in the chat window. Take a look at that. I'm actually going to put another thing in the chat window right now. Everyone get their Twitter ready. I'm just going to post a tweet, and you can go ahead and copy and paste it right into Twitter and with that hashtag intact. And the first 5 people to do so, if you haven't already, will win a free t-shirt. So I'm giving it just a second to let everyone get that ready. And there it is. All right, we do have a good amount to get through. This is a really exciting new thing that we want to share. We're really excited to have you on with us seeing it. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I'd like to pass it over to a product marketing manager from CloudBees, Bhavani.
Hey, thank you very much, Max. Let me know if you can't hear me well. So just to set everyone's some thoughts, I really appreciate everyone spending a few minutes to talk about trying to get more visibility into their current DevOps initiatives. My name is Bhavani Rao. I'm a product marketing manager, and I want to talk to you about a different way of trying to put your DevOps initiatives into perspective. And I'd like to go beyond just visibility and talk about some other common challenges that you may be facing as you start to change your processes and procedures to roll out DevOps. So let's take a look at some of the challenges that we've seen amongst our own customers that are trying to go through the DevOps journey. So the title of this particular webinar is along the lines of visibility. And what I mean by that is that it's kind of challenging to understand all the different components that go into an application and then put that in the context of teams and the applications as well as all the corresponding dependencies. So that having that level of visibility is really missing in today's enterprises. So that's one thing I want to talk about. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that, which I alluded to, is that we have a multitude of tools out there, whether that be Confluence, Jira, GitHub, Bitbucket, different testing tools, whether that Sonar, Cube, or Selenium, etc. And despite the fact that we have all these tools, it's still kind of hard to understand that even though everyone's using the same set of tools, it's very hard to figure out what actually is happening, in the application delivery process, because there's really no relationship between individual tools, the teams, and the applications. And lastly, this is a solution that ERP solved many, many years ago, and that is having a central source of truth. So if for many folks in the development lifecycle, there's no location or resource to go to that can provide actual information on whether a particular job or fix or feature has actually made it to production, or what's holding up the process of getting things out to production. So what we've come to do is rely on having a whole bunch of meetings, say release team meetings on a weekly basis, or go about trying to put some post messages on group chats and with the hope that somebody would respond. So the end result is that these problems can kind of bubble up above and beyond just poor visibility into being, into the fact that we've made a huge investment in implementing DevOps from a cultural perspective, from a process perspective, from a procedures, from a tools perspective, but we're still having difficulty in terms of trying to manage DevOps. So how do we end up there? What led us to this, and are these really valid problems that we're that are out there? Well, I'm going to help you validate if this is something that you're seeing as well, because I'm going to build this out with a series of the next couple of slides. So let's talk about how we got into this issue with poor visibility. So in the very beginning, we went about adopting, say, Agile methodologies, and one of the functions of an Agile team is that it's small, it's self-organizing. So these are independent teams. They're self-managed, so they can kind of guide themselves in terms of how they allocate their work, and they might have even now decided as a at the organizational level to implement component-based architecture. So for example, you might have even implemented some sort of microservices to make it much easier to facilitate an Agile team work concepts. Along those lines, you might have standardized on a few common tools. So I believe there's some people talk in terms of the 4 core DevOps tools, which would be something like, say, Jira, Git, Jenkins, maybe Confluence. So a ticketing system, SCM system, a orchestration platform for CD, and potentially some sort of team collaboration platform as well. So when you put that all together, I'm showing you a picture of, say, a Jenkins pipeline. This is a Jenkins pipeline, and you can see they're very simplistic because individual team members, they know what's going on with inside their team. They have full visibility into what the dependencies are. They know what the blockers are because even everybody interacts with everybody. So life is very, very good. Teams are very, very productive. The complexity arises when a pipeline such as one I'm showing you is exploded so that it tries to build out for multiple components. So let's say, for example, in this next slide, you have multiple pipelines now, and each of these pipelines can be used to build out individual components, and these components themselves are rolled up into one large application, and in some cases you might have multiple applications. So the complexity has increased. So immediately what you're seeing is that I had a lot of visibility at one point in the individual team. When I was on the team, I knew exactly what everybody was doing. I know how my work impacts other people on the team. However, now as I try to expand this out to, say, a larger application with multiple components, I have upstream and downstream dependencies, and I don't know what they are. I could be doing something in the upstream, I could be doing some commits that make a difference for people who are further down in the testings, further down in the software development lifecycle. So we've seen an increase in complexity. We've also seen a corresponding decrease in visibility. So that ties back to this discussion on, hey, it's hard to get visibility on this SDLC. It's hard to get visibility on a lot of our DevOps initiatives, especially with regard to what's working, what's not working. So let's take this a step further. Let's say that, in addition to just talking about, about having components that, multiple components that go into an application, let's talk about the fact that we could possibly be seeing additional challenges, and that's regarding some of the problem statements I brought up before, which is along the lines of the fact that, it's difficult to create context between applications, teams, and tools. Well, why is that important? Well, in many cases, companies such as yourselves might actually have standardized in the same tools. So here's an example where multiple teams in different parts of the world are using the same tools. We're using Atlassian, we're using Git, we're using Jenkins, but despite the fact that we all have the same tools, it's kind of still hard to figure out the context behind what's happening. So for example, you could have somebody in France, make some changes overnight, and you're in southeastern United States, and you don't know exactly what the changes are, because when you go in and look at the Jenkins, or you look at the GitHub GitHub, or look in the Jira tickets, you can't comprehend what actually is happening. It's still challenging to try to put that context together. So this adds to the confusion with regard to being able to effectively implement DevOps in your organization. And lastly, I want to say that some folks out there have taken a stab at trying to understand what is going on in their software development lifecycle by putting together what we call a value map or some sort of diagram discussing how they go about the actual flow of software delivery. This is an actual example from Microsoft, and this is an example of that I pulled off of one of their blogs where they're talking about their microservices architecture. And you can see it's a very complicated process, especially in the larger companies. And there's some immediate takeaways you can get from this is that it does a good job of capturing all the different pieces, but it's static. And because it's static, you really can't tell where the delays are. If you want to make an improvement, you can't figure out, what are the bottlenecks, where are the holdups in the process? Are we waiting for a peer review here? How long is that peer review? What's the cycle time on this? So that's one. The other thing is that once you put it down and capture it, that's great, but as soon as you do that, the information starts to decay. So the information is outdated. So I'm going to come back to that third tenet that I messaged earlier in the very first part of the discussion, which is that there's no source of truth. So we had no source of truth, a lack of visibility, and an inability to have any kind of context between teams and applications. So what are organizations doing now to solve some of these challenges? Well, for the most part, many people have implemented manual steps. So whether that be starting on the left side, they could be looking at individual Jira tickets or Slack messages. So in many cases, this could be developers closing out individual Jira tickets. And for a programmer, what they think is done is not the same as what someone who is in, an ops might think is done. So for a programmer, it might be, hey, I got my build to compile successfully, and it's on its way into integration testing, but it didn't actually make it all the way to production. So there's a disconnect right there. The other thing that people do is they try to use IM channels, whether that be HipChat or Slack, etc., to find out, hey, where is this particular fix? Where, what's going on? What happened last night? What changes were made? What's holding up our testing cycle? So we also have a stream of release team meetings that people have on a regular basis to keep inner groups or inner team to create some sort of collaboration between the different teams. We also have manual processes like checklists. And lastly, now there's always the consultants that we hire to try to document our own processes and then identify where improvements can be made. So ideally, what we would need is something that's automated, that can be considered a single source of truth. It's close to being real time, that actually captures information so that it's not outdated, like that value stream mapping. It shows us what's going on in currently. And then lastly, it captures both the big picture as well as the details. And what I mean by that when I say big picture as well as details is that when we were working in an individual Agile team, we had good visibility into the jobs that we worked on or the pipelines that our team was doing. So we had full knowledge of the individual jobs. We were able to get access to those Jira tickets, access to the corresponding Confluence pages, etc. So we need to have not only the individual granular capability to drill down that far, but also be able to capture at a high level the concept of an application and how an application is assembled, and be able to monitor how we go about the process of delivering that application to the market. So this is a capture on what's going on right now. Let me tell you a little bit about what industry experts such as, say, Gartner and Jez Humble have talked about. So one of the things that Gartner has pointed to in a recent report called Metrics-Based DevOps was trying to measure DevOps from the perspective of trying to quantify as much as possible in terms of, like, say, cycle time, in terms of mean time between to recovery, those type of factors as a way to evaluate DevOps. Along those same lines, or in parallel with that, would be Jez Humble's value stream mapping, which is very similar to what that Microsoft slide is, which is a way of examining all the different stages that the software goes through on its way to from process of going from an idea all the way to production. So from commit all the way to production. So just these are some thought leaders, and this is what has been proposed. Well, we've got, and so what I want to talk to you about is that there's a solution at your fingertips that you can leverage. And that solution right now, there's someone right now, if you're on this call, you're more than likely a Jenkins user. So if you're a Jenkins user, you have an advantage because Jenkins sees all the information, sees or has access to a lot of data with respect to all the build events and all the stages of the software delivery lifecycle. So because of the fact that there's so many integrations with Jenkins, and correspondingly we've got Jenkins hooked up with with every aspect of the SDLC, it has pretty good knowledge of what's happening on a regular basis. So the data is already there. You don't have to change what you're doing in terms of your software delivery process. All you have to do is create the relationship between teams, applications, and tools, and then surface that data so that you can provide that context. So the context being team, application, and tools, and then driving down to what does this team do, what's the application, and what teams are working on it, and what tools are they using. So having said that, I'd like to take this opportunity now to introduce a product that's out in the market that CloudBees has introduced, and it's called CloudBees DevOptics Deliver. There are similar products to this in the marketplace, but I'm hoping that you'll find this particular this solution unique because it's automated. I mean, you could definitely go through some of the industry experts or the consultants and use those as viable alternatives to being able to improve visibility into your DevOps practice, as well as trying to assess and evaluate your DevOps initiatives. But this is a new tool that leverages our products such as CloudBees Jenkins Team and CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. What I mean by that is that it takes the build events directly from the logs from the build events, and it takes that information and puts together a view based off of, say, your view of the software delivery lifecycle. In this example, I'm showing code, build, system test, acceptance test, and release as a very simple set of phases that our software is going through. And this particular product, it does a live graphical view of the delivery stream, so it shows you changes as they are being managed by Jenkins. It immediately visually identifies bottlenecks and dependencies. So for example, you can see that all of these items here are, basically integration test is dependent on all of this up here. This is all the upstream activity. So it also can identify through color coding when a particular project is failing or passing. So these are all different projects. You can define them as either as projects or as individual teams that the teams are working on, or you could consider them even pipelines. So they could be considered a project, or team, or a pipeline. And based off of the color coding, it helps you differentiate. Green being successful in terms of the number of jobs that particular project, that pipeline is sending through, and a red indicating a failure. So, and it's telling you how many have actually are sitting in that particular project to move to the next phase, to the next stage of the software delivery lifecycle. It has this ability to capture the metrics from your existing delivery processes, so we can actually get information on cycle time, mean time to recovery, etc. It creates some sort of context. It creates a context between applications, tools, and teams, and it leverages existing CloudBees products, so whether that be CloudBees Jenkins Team, CloudBees Jenkins Platform, or CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. So let me give you a little bit more of a little drill down on what the features are behind this product. So it's got some unique capabilities, and I'm going to run through them fairly quickly. And after that, I want to show you a quick demo. So this is immediately is a visualization. You can get, I'm showing here a very simple application with very limited number of steps and a very limited number of teams that are used to build out this particular application, but immediately you're getting end-to-end visibility, and you're able to identify, hey, what's upstream, what's downstream, and this view is available for anyone regardless of where they sit in the software development lifecycle. That could be a developer that could be someone in QA, that could be a VP of DevOps, it could be a VP, Director of Application Development. So going from there, another feature is that there's a drill down capability. I had spoken earlier about being able to see both the big picture as well as the granularity of individual pipelines. So here I'm showing a drill down on an individual pipeline, and you can see from there, which individual jobs have passed, which individual jobs have failed, to discern who, what, where, and when. Another unique feature I'd like to highlight is that it has this filter capability, which I think is really unique. You can filter or you can search on, say, changes that have been issued by a ticket number, a time frame, or assignee. So say, for example, that you come into work and you notice that your staging environment is different all of a sudden because somebody in France had submitted a bunch of jobs, but you don't quite know what jobs were sent through, what actually made it into production or into staging. Well, this is a way to tell. You can use a filter. Here I'm showing issues in the last 90 days, but you could likewise filter on 30 days or last 24 hours, and you can identify all the jobs that actually made it into staging and then be able to isolate the root cause behind that. So I think I kind of, to aid that root cause, there's a really unique capability. This is, this kind of amplifies the granularity capabilities of the product by being able to go back to the source code repository as well as the corresponding Jira tickets. So we're surfacing some information from Jira itself, like say the author of the ticket, the status of the ticket, those type of things. But you can go further than that and literally go much, to the individual Jira tickets themselves to find out what's going on, look at the source code, and try to get to the root cause of what's the cause of a blockage or delay. So how does this thing work? What's the magic sauce? Well, the way it works is that there's a series of plugins that sit on the Jenkins masters themselves. And so here I'm showing Jenkins Team, CloudBees Jenkins Team, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, and CloudBees Jenkins Platform in the bottom right. And these plugins, there's two types of plugins. One is a data collector plugin, and the other one is a UI rendering plugin. The data collector plugin goes through the Jenkins logs, sends information on the job data. We use something called fingerprinting, which is a Jenkins feature to be able to track the status of an artifact, and it sends this thing called fingerprinting data, and then the Git metadata itself. These go up into the cloud, into our DevOptics deliver, which is a SaaS-based application. And at this point, we collect this information, and then in as close to real time as possible, we compile an application definition based off of what customers defined as to what the stages are in their process and how all the individual teams and projects line up. Then we also then compute where individual changes are in real time based off of the fingerprint information. So this is then sent back to the customer, to you, and rendered in your browser as a view that you can use to help get a complete picture of your software delivery process. So having said that, some of the challenges that DevOptics deliver can solve is, did my fix make it through to production, which is basically being able to search for a particular ticket, or whether that be by author or by a time frame or by a ticket number, and identifying where it sits. And then you can say, okay, hey, I'm ready. I can go home because my change made it to production. And then I've talked a little bit about the staging environment is different. Well, what changed? Then I didn't talk about this, which is what job broke the build, where and who, and I've identified in a few of the screenshots that you can see from the color coding what changes if there's a change in terms of the fact that it turns the circle red, then there's a broken build there, and you can drill down to find out what happened. And then if you were looking at trying to understand how to go about planning for a sprint, you would say, hey, what features are ready for, say, my QA team or for a release team, etc. Along those lines, you can see what changes are queued up in the gate before it, or the stage right before it, and then I'd isolate, okay, I've got these are all the pending work I can work on, and I can align myself much closely to what the rest of the organization is trying to deliver on. And then if you are trying to examine it from the perspective of process improvements, you could try to see what's choking the CD process. Well, you can look at it and say, you can get a list of where the bottlenecks are based off of the times it takes to resolve issues, all the lead time metrics. So the items I have in underline are kind of exploded further in the next couple of slides. So let's take the first one, which is staging environment is different. What's changed? Here we have an example of, say, an engineering manager. And we've talked about this once before, is that, hey, what changed since yesterday? You can take a look at the graph by filtering on recent changes, and then you can drill down to the individual tickets and then go from there to find out, okay, you can see all the individual tickets and the corresponding information in the tickets to find out, okay, what's the rationale, what caused the change the environment to look different. Here's another challenge or another problem that we can solve, which is I want to plan what's next for the QA team. We're getting ready for our next sprint. You can see all the features that are parked in the prior phase that are all queued up. And with that, you can do a better job of trying to put together the corresponding work that you need, based on the backlog that is available to you, and make better use of your time for the team, as well as align closely to what the organization's trying to deliver upon. And here's another problem that we can help you with, which is if you were a manager trying to identify potential improvements to your CD process, you would want to see where are the bottlenecks, where the delays in the process. Well, you can look at individual choke points, or you can even look at in metrics and say, okay, I see that a lot of changes are either queued up here, and you can see that visually, or you can even look at some of the metrics and say, okay, you know what, this is taking way longer than expected this time around, wonder what's going on, and then you can go down to identify whether, if in this case we're trying to isolate a problem based off of an individual issue with a particular job, but it could be a lot more broader. It could be broader than that, which should be trying to improve process overall in the organization. So a quick wrap up before we run into a demo. Just some of the challenges and corresponding benefits that we can help address with DevOptics Deliver. That being the fact that it's a single version of the truth, much like the ERP systems of old. It helps because it consolidates multiple systems into a single view. In this particular case, we're able to get information from multiple Jenkins masters, multiple Jira instances, and get instances to be able to compile them all into one single location. It helps identify improvements visually, so you can try to plan for how where to make the effort in terms of potential improvements. It enables collaboration because of the fact that you can directly drill down and see what the root causes of blockages and delays are. And lastly, because of the fact that we've got some metrics in terms of how individual teams are doing and how the organization is doing, we can see which teams are better at adopting CD and why. And you can get down to, okay, hey, this is the process they have in place, and hopefully that same process can be propagated to other parts of the organization. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you to, I'm going to show you a video of a demo, and the reason I'm going to use this, if I can get out of here, okay, is that what I want to do is I'm going to run this video. And the reason I'm using the video is because it's got captions on the bottom. So just in case you can't hear me, it's a lot easier to just follow along with the captions. So what I'm showing here is a demo of DevOptics Deliver, and I have modeled a very simple application. What we have here is a series of jobs: a checkout job, a credit card job, payment job, pet store job, shopping cart, and then finally this is a job to publish. So what we're looking at is a application for a online store. And so this online store has basically publishes to the web and has multiple components. Based off of this, this is very simplistic. So the list here is very, very short, but in many places the number of jobs that you see is overwhelming, and trying to consolidate that into some sort of context as to what application it is can be very, very challenging. So what we've done is I'm going to go forward and try to show you how this would, the same thing would look with DevOptics. So for individual teams that you know exactly what's going on in these jobs or pipelines, but you don't know the relationship between what's upstream, what's downstream. What we're going to do is collect the build events and create a live view of software delivery. So we're showing these now as pipelines, and then what we're going to do is model it. And we're going to model it the application is called Acme Online. So what Acme Online does, it's basically is a catalog. It's an online store, and it uses multiple components to create this online store. So let's see how the view looks now. So immediately, as you can see here, is that this is an online store that consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say that it has three. It's a very simplistic software development lifecycle. It's got 3 phases: a build, a system test phase, and a deploy phase. And they've got 5 teams. Let's say 6 teams. So we've got credit card team, a payment team, a store team, a shopping cart team, and checkout. These could be pipelines. These could be teams. And then lastly, we have this publishing team, which would be the Acme Online. They're the ones who actually deploy it to multiple servers all over the world, etc., or different places. And so let's see what happens. What we'll do is we're going to simulate jobs as they flow through Jenkins, and as the jobs flow through Jenkins, you'll see these circles light up and turn colors. Blue indicates that it's processing the jobs. Green indicates a success. Red indicates a failure. And the number in here represents the number of jobs being processed by the individual pipelines themselves. So actually, we're going to process the changes. I'm sorry, we're going to process the changes. So the changes should be coming through. I believe they start, I think, in the credit card and go from there. But immediately you can see what's dependent on what and what's, where the dependencies are. This is what's being highlighted, is that shopping cart is dependent on store and checkout. Payment is dependent on credit card. So regardless of where you are, upstream and downstream, you immediately understand the context of where you sit in the software development lifecycle. So changes are now flowing through from credit card. They're also coming into checkout, and you'll see that the pipeline, as these changes come through, these circles will change color from blue to green or from blue to red. I mentioned the integration with Jira, Git, and Jenkins, and we're going to show that as well. So what we're showing here is that the user in this particular case has clicked on the checkout team, and they will look into that pipeline itself. They can see the tickets that are flowing through. So you can see 2 tickets here, and here they are: checkout 1, checkout 2, and then you can even do drill down above and beyond that by actually getting straight directly into the to the Jira tickets associated with that, which is, I think, was going to show. Yeah, it's just going to show the Jira ticket. We also connect with any version of Git now, so that's not shown, but we can do that as well. So here we're going to show a different scenario, and what we're going to show is a potential break that could happen, or a problem what occurs when there's a failure. So let's say that we've got changes coming in through from store, but now we got some. We know I know for a fact there's a bug coming in. So there's a bug coming in. It's going to break the shopping cart assembly area. So let's see what happens. So here you go. It shows that there's a failure right there. The circle has turned partially red. And at this point, the user can, you can, if you want to, drill down into that and expose, hey, what caused the job failures? And better yet, if you can communicate that failure to teams upstream, and then they can send that the fix through, and if you know that what that fix is called, whether that be by author or by number, you can use the search to be able to see that ticket coming through. So basically, it's showing that, hey, we see 3, what's failed, and then 2 of them were successful. So we've communicated the failure to the store team, and we're going to have the store team address it. So they're going to create a new ticket called store 4, and we're going to search for it using the search filter or search bar right up in the very top. This filter is neat because what it does is that it only populates with whatever's available in near real time. So it'll collapse the balance of the view if it can't find that item that it's looking for. So it's kind of grayed out, showing, hey, there's nothing in store 4, but as soon as it comes in, it'll show it. So you can see it coming through, and now it's going into the shopping cart. And from shopping cart, it fixes the issue with shopping cart. So now it's green, and it pushes all those changes to the next phase, which is a deploy phase. And at this point, we're going into production. So, and that's basically it. We've resolved the bottleneck, and we've hunted it down without having to worry about without having to mess around going on the HipChat channels and finding out what actually happened. So if you like what you see, I'd like to ask for the people on the call, we can open it up for questions, but at this point, but if you're interested in seeing more, we'd like to schedule demos, and you can go basically to our website, look for CloudBees DevOptics under the product section of our website, and just click on schedule a demo, and we'd be happy to set up a time to talk. So at this point, I'm going to send it back to Max to see if he has any questions for me.
Thanks, Vivani. We did get a few. I put some in the questions panel you should be able to take a look at and read. I am also right now putting this link into the chat window for anyone who's interested in seeing it now. Like I said, there's a couple in there you can take a look at. If you don't mind, I'd like to start with one that I saw that I didn't share with you while you take a look and see what you'd like to touch on next, which is DevOptics creating the views in real time?
It's as close to real time as it can get, because what's happening is that it uses a complex algorithm it basically pulls the build events directly from Jenkins, and then it runs it through a pretty complex algorithm to compute where the status of where the changes are in the application delivery process. It literally draws the application every time. It also computes where the changes are in real time. So it's close to real time, but not exactly real time. I would say it's live. Okay. I don't see the rest of the questions, so if you can kind of say them, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the tools being used here to see integration tests, breakdowns, etc.?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, I'll slow it down. What are the tools being used here to see integration tests, breakdown, etc.?
Okay, good question. So in this particular case, we're not, all we're doing is collecting build events from, say, Selenium or whatever tools you've got integrated into Jenkins. We're collecting data from what Jenkins logs is compiling. So we're not able to get the level of, say, integration as you would have to be able to drill back into Git or Jira, but we just source that information from the Jenkins logs themselves. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, if at any point we get to your question you don't feel is answered, feel free to follow up in there, and we'll take a look. Here's another. We use SaltStack for deployment. Will this be able to work for that as well?
Yes, as long as SaltStack is sending is managed through you're sending stuff through Jenkins into SaltStack. Yes, because as long as you have, so this particular process requires a feature of Jenkins called fingerprinting, and it's a way of being able to track the artifacts by assigning a unique ID to them and understanding, with that fingerprinting turned on, you can send it to whatever third-party tool that integrates with Jenkins, and we can track where the heck it is.
All right. Excuse me. So let me take a quick look at what we have here. This one, I believe they're referring to open source Jenkins and not CloudBees Jenkins. So the question is, we use Jenkins. Does DevOptics support Jenkins?
So for the purposes of today's call, what I'm going to say is that let me just go back to the main slide so it presents properly. So right now, DevOptics works with CloudBees Jenkins Team, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, and CloudBees Jenkins Platform. The best way for people who are interested in DevOptics to get this kind of functionality is to start with, say, CloudBees Jenkins Team, which is our base offering. It's priced at a very low point because it's basically nothing more than Jenkins with support. So CloudBees Jenkins Team is a base offering that includes support and an envelope of plugins that are stable and tested. This DevOptics requires a robust Jenkins core and plugins, such as, say, certain Blue Ocean plugins. So those are all part of the plugins that are tested in CloudBees Jenkins Team. So there's a dependency on that. So right now I would suggest if you're a Jenkins user, I would suggest considering going with CloudBees Jenkins Team and then DevOptics. And I think the way that we've packaged it, we've got an offering that's attractive because it's a 2-for-1 deal. So I hope that answers the question. Mm-hmm.
So we have a few more. I just want to let you know we only have a couple more right now. So if you do have a question, make sure to get it in now or soon so that we can make sure we get to it. Just saw a question about Enterprise Jenkins come in. I just want to let you know that I will get to you offline because I think that this question needs a lot more time and figuring out than what we actually have the ability to do here on the line. So I'm going to go to this one that just came in. Does this support freestyle jobs and not just pipelines?
Correct. Yeah, we support freestyle as well as pipelines.
Great. And then for now, possibly the last one, unless anyone else adds some in. So, what are the technical and business requirements? What do people need to know getting into this?
Yeah, so good question. So from a technical requirement, our integration, so number one, I talked about it a couple of times, is that we need to have fingerprinting turned on to be able to track artifacts as they flow through the different phases of the SDLC. That's one. Two, you need to use the stack that we integrate with, which would be any version of Git, any flavor of Jira, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud, and then one of our underlying products, whether it be Jenkins Team or CloudBees Jenkins Platform. So that's from a technical perspective. From one more thing is that this is a brand new product, so we have a limitation on how many jobs that a particular customer can job information that a customer can send to us. So we're measuring that not in terms of data, but in terms of the number of jobs. So we're asking for no more than a customer that has 700 jobs running per day. So that's technical. On a business side, we are actively, we have a few customers and we're actively looking for more customers. And to that end, we are proactively trying to get customers by doing a white glove installation. And what that means is that we will have our engineering as well as some of our own professional services people on site at customers to help customers be onboarded with the product. So from a business perspective, some of the work that maybe you would hire as a consultant to do to help map out your own delivery stream, we would do that on your behalf. So that's it.
Great. We did have a couple more pretty good questions just come in too. This first one's a roadmap question, so it's possible we'll have to take it offline, which we can do, but just let me know
Yeah,
beforehand.
go ahead. Ask away. I'll do my best.
So the viewer supplied a GitHub link. I just put it in the chat for you if you wanted to pull it up. It's for I might mispronounce this, but Grapheus, Grafeas, and he's wondering if there's support for that on the roadmap.
Is it an SCM? I know. Hold on, let me take a look. Oh, it's a yeah. This is supported as it is. This is the is it? So I'm not sure what is it a. It looks like it's just a source code repository with a bunch of information in it. So I'm trying to understand what this is, but
we can. I do have person who asks us Tom. I do have names, so I can make sure.
I don't think I'm answering this question properly. So I think the whoever's answering this question can just email me directly, and or email you, and then we can go about the process of trying to understand what they're asking. So
yeah, real quick for everyone, I'm going to put my email here in the chat window in case you want to get hold of me after. I'm also going to take all the questions that I said we'll get offline, and later today I'll be sending out emails. So for example, the one we just looked at, keep an eye out. I'll make sure that we get to a answer for you. Oh, he mentioned it's IBM and Google's open source API spec for software supply chain. I'll still make sure we get to you offline. I think it'll be quicker, but
yeah. So with regard to, let me make a generic discussion. Is that if it's a tool that integrates with Jenkins and it creates, it has corresponding build logs that result from that, then we can capture it. That's not a problem. When I'm talking about integration with Git and with Git servers and with Jira, I'm talking about the ability to dive directly into those applications from DevOptics based off of what links it provides to you. That's all.
Great.
I hope that's more understandable. So, but we work with all the tools all the 1,400 plugins that Jenkins has to offer. In terms of being able to capture build events from that. So.
Cool. I'll still follow up after too, just in case. So here's another good one. So if I understand the cloud version, all customers are coming through this single point. So what is the security? What keeps the customer's information confidential?
So I'll be honest with you. We are using a AWS instance that we've architected so it's multi-tenanted, and I don't have the full details on our security profile, but I can share that on as a follow-up to this email. I do know that we encrypt the data on transit, and we rely on AWS to ensure the multi-tenancy is not compromised.
What exactly is fingerprinting used for? The demo covered relationship to Git and Jira tickets, but not to the artifacts.
Yes, so fingerprinting, if you Google it, or it's a feature of Jenkins that I believe creates some sort of hash or hex code, and it allows you to trace an artifact as it goes from step to step in your SDLC. I can get more details on that. If that's not sufficient, I can get you more details on that.
Yeah, again, if you feel something's not sufficient, feel free to put it back in the chat in the question window, or send me an email. My email's in the chat, whatever works for all of you. So this might be our last one. Let's take a look. We have, excuse me, sorry. We have our network divided into secure and open environments, VED and Corp. Can we have DevOptics combine these two environments?
So you have the environment. Can you read that question one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So their network is divided into a secure environment and an open environment. Can
Yeah,
DevOptics combine those two?
it can combine them only if it can send the data outside of that environment. So if you have a firewall that precludes you from sending some of the information I showed in the architectural diagram, then it won't work. So I can give you more details on the information that's collected, but in this diagram shown here is a very basic diagram. It shows us collecting the job data, fingerprint data, and get metadata. I can explode that further to give you more granularity in what's collected, but without it, we can't combine the two. Anything else?
Here's one more that's worth addressing. Does DevOptics work with multiple Jenkins masters?
Yes, yes, yes. It would be helpful to have something like an operations center to be able to manage multiple masters, but you don't need one. This is just a plugin that just sits on the masters.
All right. Just typing a response for someone to email me this question so we can follow up later.
Mm-hmm.
If I knew how to type. Let's take a look. Sorry for everyone having to listen to me type. For the architecture. All right, it looks like that is about wrapping up. I haven't seen any other open questions come in. So I just would like to say thank you to everyone. You know, if you type one in here in the last few minutes while we're signing out, I'll make sure that we get to you offline. You're welcome to email me at the email I provided. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to everyone I've been seeing on multiple sessions on this series. It's really great to see such interest. Thank you to Bhavani, of course, for the presentation. It went over really well. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions that we were getting. And yep. I think we're good. Bonnie, do you have anything you want to say at the end?
No, I know that everyone is very busy, so I sincerely appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for, if you don't consider DevOptics, maybe you should, I think that this is an area to explore going forward, is trying to understand, hey, where are we getting value from our DevOps initiatives, and trying to put that together in light of what some of the industry experts are doing. I think is a good initiative for many people on this call. So thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. I'll make sure to get those emails out to you today.